All right,
We're back.
we're back. Happy New Year,
Happy New Year, man. 2025 already. I cannot believe it.
dude. Sarah and I were kind of like thinking about that last night. As I mentioned, we were doing like some goal setting for the year and stuff. I don't know how 2025 happened. Life moves quickly, man.
It sure does. And as we get older, it's a smaller proportion of the time we've been on Earth. So it literally does fly by quicker, man.
Hmm.
It's shocking. And I feel that more and more every year. But yeah, we've been so busy in the holiday season. I don't think I've hardly talked to you since our last episode. And I feel like every week we start this podcast by announcing how we've deviated from the plan that we announced in the week prior. So once again, life got in the way a little bit. You weren't able to make it down to Vic, but that's no sweat. Instead of getting a pod together in person with the boys and everything, we're going to do kind of a holiday wrap up podcast. Should be kind of fun. And then we'll get back to the regular scheduling programming next week, I promise. Well, not quite. Next week's episode will be featuring me in Mexico, but it's going to happen for sure. Um, how was Christmas for you? What did you get up to?
Yeah, holidays were really great. Christmas was awesome. We Sarah's family lives up in Enderby, so like an hour and a half north of here. So we actually drove up there for Christmas Eve, and then drove back home, like hung out with Lou, slept, whatever, and then had a nice Christmas slow morning, and then drove up there again the next day for like Christmas dinner and stuff. And it was super chill. It was just what I needed, like lots of just like we made puzzles and played Monopoly and ate great food and treats and got some nice family time. So yeah, it was really great. Exactly what I wanted. Although obviously as you mentioned already, the unfortunate change in plans for after Christmas where we were hoping to come to the island and I'd get to see you in person, but yeah, change of plans, unfortunately. That's I mean, it's winter. I always kind of leave that bit of a gap for some potential changes with weather and ferries getting canceled, and then yeah, just other complications. So yeah, but how was yours?
Yeah, big time. Mine was amazing. I feel like best Christmas in 25 years. Really felt the
Nice.
magic this year, so to speak. It was just calm and chill and loving. Spent the whole day at my mom's with our big extended family and Layla and Alba, and yeah, just ate good food. There's this kind of famous game amongst my family at get-togethers called Ganja Land, and it's like Candyland, but ganja themed. So
Okay.
you pull a card and there's different series, but one of them will be like an action card and then it's ganja time. So you have to like, for an example, one of the cards is everybody has to go hotbox the bathroom. So pretty fun. I also managed to see a bunch of our friends that came to town. It was so great catching up with Corey all the way out here from Ontario. Day one bestie. We played 18 holes of golf on December 23rd. It was a little wet, but it was so much fun. And obviously, it's a little bit different when he's in using his dad's clubs, and
Yeah, that's tough.
Ontario weather's not as good as here, so he hadn't played in months. And
Hmm.
I spanked him, but
Nice.
yeah,
That's great,
yeah, he's a better player than me, no doubt about it. I just yeah, I had practice on my side that day.
dude. Unfamiliar clubs seems like it shouldn't be that much of a challenge, but it is so difficult. I remember that year that I lived in England after
Yeah, yeah.
after high school, and I was like volunteering, working at school or whatever. And at one point they had a golf day sort of thing, and at the time, like before I went over when I was in high school, I was golfing pretty regularly. I was like 4 or 5 handicap or something, and so I was asked, "Oh, do you play golf?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I play pretty regularly. I'm a single digit handicap. Like I know my way around a course, and obviously didn't have my clubs with me. Like rented this pretty atrocious set of irons with this horrible offset on it, and I could barely hit the ball. And it was quite a blow to the ego to have these people be like single digit handicap. Like, what are you talking about? But man, it's so hard.
The reverse sandbagger.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So hole one of the day. Okay, Corey, don't hate me for sharing this story, but it's the best part. We are waiting for the group ahead of us to clear the green on like a 300-yard hole, and he's gonna kick it off. He got the honors, and he's like, you know what? If I hit this right, like I can smack it over 300. I'm just gonna wait for the green to clear.
Yeah,
And maybe I cursed him by saying this, but I was like, it's in these moments when you top the ball and it goes 10 feet. And sure enough, like the next three drive attempts just couldn't make contact. So took it to the drop zone up down the fairway with us. But yeah, that was funny. I had my
Been
fair
there,
share
man.
of snake that round too. Um, yeah. And so that was December 23rd. And then I've even gotten a few more rounds of golf since then. I'd say like 54 holes of golf from December 23rd to January 1st is pretty impressive in this tropical Victoria climate.
Dude, honestly, we're not far off being able to golf here. I mean, the temperature's a little bit lower. It's around zero. So I'm sure the like frost would damage the course if you actually tried to play on it. But we've got no snow here currently. Like yesterday, I went out and blowed away all the leaves and did some like yard maintenance stuff that'll make it easier in the spring once, we will get some snow again at some point. And it's crazy. It feels just wrong to be looking out the window here and it's just like green. It's like, pretty wild.
You think it's just pushed back to happen in February or just a milder year?
No, it's a milder year like last year, but we will get at some point. We always do. We get a cold snap and some snow. It typically does mostly fall within January and February, so it'll come. But it's been pretty easy on us so far this year.
Okay, great. So is this episode 6?
I think it's episode 6, yeah, which is fun. Yeah, we're gonna kind of
Episode 6 of the Never Better podcast.
yeah, we're gonna throw out our standard format. Obviously, we had planned to do something fun with some friends if I had made it to the island, but I actually really like this. As I think I kind of mentioned already, Sarah and I did some like goal setting and stuff for the next year. And going into this kind of like best of 2024, and then going through some like ins and outs for 2025, which will be kind of along those lines of kind of goal setting. I think it'll work really well for this episode. I think as this pod continues, we should make this an annual thing to do a bit of a year review. So yeah, it'll be good.
Absolutely. One of my top highlights of 2024, even though we started in the tail end of it, would be this pod for sure.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
Next year, we'll be able to compile some actual clips and lessons and advice from our actual episodes to get those into a recap. For now, we'll just have to fill in the gaps. I had a pretty great 2024 overall. I don't know about you, but I'm seeing on my social medias most people saying that it was a real bad one. Obviously, there were some unfortunate things that happened in the year, but for me personally, I'm going to give it I give it a good rating.
That's nice,
7.8.
7.8. For me, I've been on the opposite end of the spectrum. It's been interesting scrolling through after a very challenging year and seeing people's like best year yet, blah, blah, blah. And that was a little bit hard to see just with some of the challenges that we've been through this last year. But, I actually had a really good mentality about the whole thing yesterday, or at least within the last couple of days. I've caught myself kind of scrolling back through photos in my phone over the last year. And in those moments, I'm realizing like that there were a lot of really good highlights, lots of good moments. I think we made the most of a super, super tough year. Still managed to do a couple small little like trips locally within the province, and achieved some good things even through the hardships. So I won't give mine a high rating. It'll be super low. Definitely the toughest year of my life, but there's been some good to come out of it as well.
Big time. It's been hard hearing the series of struggles you've been going through. And the only thing that I can think is that pressure builds pearls. And though it's been a difficult year, it's especially with you and Sarah, I imagine that you've bonded in a way that's been more close and intimate than you could have ever imagined. Happened so quickly and so concentrated. So that's got to be cool. And there's only room for improvement going into next year.
For sure, man. That was a big thing. We both said like we don't know how we would have gotten through the last year without each other. It's as crazy as it like we've always had such a close bond. To think that the things that we've gone through were even closer now. And then like, yeah, it feels pretty cool to kind of build on your marriage in a different way through challenges instead of always like sunshine and rainbows. I think was good for us. So I'll take that as a positive. But if 2025 can be a little easier on us, that would be great.
Dude. Yeah, life is hard, even harder if you try and go it alone. For the segment 1, we were going to do the best of 2024 to kick things off on a positive note, starting with the best meal of the year. Tell us yours.
Yeah, mine, it took me a little while to think of one actually, just because we haven't had like a, typically we'll try new restaurants or do new things if we're traveling, and we didn't really do much traveling this year for that sort of fun kind of stuff. But luckily for me, one of the properties that the company that I work with, we have a beautiful like rooftop restaurant patio on the roof of one of our wineries. The winery is called Crown and Thieves, and we did a bit of a shakeup this year. We got in a new like company-wide executive chef took over that restaurant location. The restaurant's called Angel Share, and he kind of revitalized and revamped the menu. We kind of waited till the weather was like really really primed to open for the year instead of struggling through kind of a rainy spring. So June 1st was kind of the soft opening. Sarah and I went out for that evening and had a lovely dinner. It was like 9 days before she was going in for her planned surgery, so we kind of knew it was a bit of a special one, that we wouldn't get to go out for a nice meal or do anything like romantic like that for a little while. So that made it like an extra special evening. They gave us the best table, which is perks of working there. But I did remember exactly what we ate. So that's what made this meal stick out for me. So the menu is designed in a really nice way where you can kind of choose a dish from each section and then kind of share your way through it. So we started with just like some simple like crispy confit potatoes. Then we had a panzanella salad, which was really, really delicious. You mentioned you were familiar with this dish. I remember when mentioning it to you, I had never had it before, but really fresh, lovely, like fresh mozzarella, really delicious greens, which was really cool. Then there's a tartare menu. They do tuna and beef. We had the beef, if I remember correctly, which was really tasty. Again, I don't know if I've ever had a beef tartare, but that was really cool. I had actually been to the restaurant earlier that day or the day before, I think, to take some photos and stuff for the website. And they made one of the main dishes, the entrees, was a braised lamb shank. And that wasn't initially what jumped out to me on the menu, but after seeing it in person, I was blown away. So we had that for our main. And then they did a creme brulee for the dessert, which they called crown brulee, being on the roof at Crown and Thieves, which is kind of fun. But it was an interesting take on a creme brulee. There was a nice like lemony flavor to it that I hadn't necessarily noticed in another creme brulee before. So every dish was just like done to perfection, especially for an opening night. I was really impressed, and unfortunately didn't get a chance to go again throughout this year, but I'm looking forward to the reopening again when the weather clears up this year, and seeing what Chef Ryan comes up with for this next year. That was my number one best meal for sure.
That sounds amazing then. I remember when you took me to that restaurant when we were in Kelowna for a summer a couple of years ago, and it was awesome. That must have been the first summer it opened. I remember having the panzanella salad on the menu that night, but maybe I'm misremembering. That's one of my all-time favorite salads.
Nice. Yeah, it was really, really good. I enjoyed it. I'd definitely order again.
Yeah. So talking about how time is crazy and kind of hard to keep track of and how quickly a year can go by. And when I was going through my memory to look at all the meals I had this year, my first pick was like, it immediately popped into my mind, and I've got this best meal of the year by far. Me and the boys go to Budapest and we have some Hungarian goulash at this restaurant that a coworker recommended to me. And it was awesome. It was like our most coveted meal of the whole trip because we had just heard hype of this goulash, and really authentic restaurant, really great prices, drinking lots, just set and setting. Like I can't think of a better time than hanging out with my best friend, traveling around Europe. They're going into shop at these designer clothes stores, and I'm getting a tall bottle of beer from the local store and just drinking it in the streets. Yeah, sign me up. But the catch to that is that unfortunately was not in 2024. That was at the very tail end of
I was
2023.
gonna say, I was like, that was this year.
I failed. Yeah, yeah, I know. That was like unfortunately 13 months ago, so it doesn't count. So next
Pretty
one,
close.
Galliano for my birthday. Yeah, yeah. We made a classic Galley gumbo. Galliano Island, my favorite place on earth. Just chucking a bunch of shit into a pot while we're high on you know what and everything else. And we call it cooking on high, just frantically throwing things into a pot, managing the flames just going out of the fireplace like crazy, but it's always good. Warms you up, and yeah, amazing.
Nice. That sounds great.
What's next up on it?
Next up is our best lesson learned, which was a good one for sure. for me, I think you added that to the list of these best ofs, and that one jumped out for me because it has been a big year of learning. So this will tie into literally the next point as well, but in a more general sense, my best lesson learned this year was the power of your mind and therapy to help with that. I'd never done therapy before. I had never been quite in the mental struggle like I was in this year, which was down to a lot of different reasons. But my biggest lesson, I would say, is that like the power really of that mind, and for positive or negative, how it can pull you out of a tough time with the right tools, or how, you know, you can find yourself a bit lost without having the proper tools. And that's that added on therapy piece that really was the biggest lesson for me. As, and I know we've mentioned many times on the podcast before, but if you're somebody who's, you know, you're having some struggles, or you feel like in any way that therapy might be a help and you're hesitant for whatever reason, give it a try. I could not recommend it any more highly. It really made a difference to my year. So that was my number one lesson learned.
It's amazing, man. I'm so glad that you found that. It's a very powerful tool, as you said.
Totally.
Okay. My lesson learned stemmed from experimenting with taking a break from alcohol. So the power of not relying on substances to regulate my mood. Obviously, I talk about this a lot. I still smoke cannabis and have some reliance there, but the insight gained from not drinking alcohol has led me to pursue eventually cutting out cannabis as well, and just using more healthy tools to regulate my mood and my emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So much positive and growth has come from the booze. I kind of have a feeling, though I'm upset about it, a similar thing is going to come from cutting out the cannabis. So a lesson learned, regulating it in different ways. Like, and I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean that I need to cut out substances altogether, but not relying them as a tool for self-medication, thinking of them as a recreational outlet.
Yeah, 100%, man. That's a really great distinction. Yeah. Smart, very smart.
Yeah. And I had another note next to that, just the importance and kind of the power of consistency, like repetitions build habit. So something might seem insurmountable, like stopping drinking or starting to go to the gym regularly, but you start with 1 day, and then it's 2 days, and then it's 3 days. And as you keep going, it just gets easier and it becomes habit. And yeah,
Totally. I mean, anyone out there that's giving some, sorry, I was just going to say, yeah, anybody out there that's giving some like resolutions a go for the year, resolutions, goals, whatever you want to call it, that's some great advice for a good place to start if you're looking to make some consistent changes, is just focus on the small steps. I have some goals that I've set out for myself for this next year, and very much want to start small, understand that I still have some work to do after this challenging year, and will be getting back into, full-time work and stuff, and I need to start small to build that consistency. So get a start there, and then increase your frequency and intensity from there, but just start small and give yourself some grace. I think is really good.
Absolutely. So your best lesson learned in 2024 is 100% mental health related, but our next best of in this segment is best mental health tips. So what do you have for us there?
This, I think, was the biggest eye opener for me in terms of not really realizing some of the habits I had developed mentally or cognitively, whatever, were what I thought were healthy things, looking inside myself, trying to understand what's going on with me and my body and whatever. My therapist basically explained this to me at one point, and it was an epiphany moment. It changed the trajectory of my year and what I was struggling with. Basically, I was in this situation where I was dealing with all these health problems, some like physical pain and a lot of anxiety built around those kind of physical symptoms that I was having. And I got stuck within a mentality of trying to figure out like what was going on, what was causing it, and how I could fix it. And through that, I was ruminating on some of the like traumatic experiences that had happened throughout the year. And the key that my therapist explained to me, which makes a ton of sense once you can kind of step out of it and think about it, is that your brain doesn't understand the difference between experiencing that trauma and ruminating and reliving it. Obviously our brain is like this incredible receptor that takes in all this information from our bodies in the world and whatever, and it is processing and experiencing all of those things. And it was very eye-opening for me to understand that, one specific detail was in the early March of this last year, I ended up in the hospital twice with some issues with my heart. That was like very scary and super traumatic. And I didn't understand why those things had happened and why I was feeling that way and how I could prevent it from happening again. So in doing so, I would think about those moments again and be like, well, what was I doing that day that maybe like spurred that on, or what did I do wrong? And all that did was put my brain into a place of reliving those traumatic experiences and then kickstarting all of those feelings again. And I didn't understand that that's what I was doing. I was triggering that fight or flight, like anxiety response, essentially, by ruminating and trying to solve this problem. And the only thing that got me out of that was understanding that was making it worse. And then eventually trying to reach a point of acceptance of like, this is my reality, and I understand that it's just a struggle that I'm dealing with right now and that it will get better. And once I was able to reach that point, which it still sometimes can be a bit of a struggle because you want to feel good and want to get better. As I say, completely changed my trajectory for the year, and was, amongst many other very good health tips that I got from my therapist, that was the one that I think I would choose as the defining moment in changing my negative trajectory to a positive.
Yeah, that's a great one. And it seems so obvious when you think about it, but you wouldn't consider it in the moment.
100%, yeah.
It also reminds me of what I've been hearing lately about people saying that venting does the same thing. It just perpetuates negative emotions. And especially if you're not venting with a solution in mind, or you're not venting with tools to find a solution. Well, yeah, that's just one more reason to advocate for seeing a professional and go vent to someone that can actually help you find progress and get out of that negative thought cycle, that rumination.
Totally.
Yeah, honestly,
I don't think there's huge harm in venting some small frustrations throughout the day, but you're very much correct in that if those things build up and there are bigger issues, they need to be dealt with properly.
My mental health tip, we talk about this in every episode we've done so far, I think, and it's basically a summarization of yours as well, but that's the power of perspective and reframing things in your mind. So me talking about not relying on substances to regulate my mood and my emotions, well, what am I going to rely on instead? And that's mindfulness. That's looking within, that's identifying the triggers and the outward forces that are making me feel or think a certain way, and then reframing those. So just like Dr. Bob says in episode 1, think of that difficult putt as an opportunity to show off how good of a putter you are. That's framing it in a positive way instead of, shit, I'm scared that I'm not going to make this big putt. Yes, I really want to work on managing my inner voice and that chatter and dealing with it in healthy and positive ways. Right now, the inner voice has been loud, the chatter's been unmanageable, reach to whatever can shut it off the fastest. And I'd rather work through it proactively.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a big one. That's part of some of the goals I've set out for myself for this next year as well. I've found some of that. A bit of like, I think I've got a bit of a lack of confidence right now. And I think about, heading back to work full time and, moving forward with life with kind of some of the new realities with some of my health stuff. And that's some of that negative mental chatter that I want to. It's great advice. Reframe it, think through the positives, and very cool.
Yeah. Another more specific example that I just thought of in my own personal life and things that I've been trying to reframe in terms of my inner voice. So not just a golf reference, but at this point in my life, I don't have a solid career path forward that I feel super positive or excited about. And sometimes the inner voice can be hard on myself, constantly checking in like, okay, what are you going to do? What's the plan? We're going to go back to school. We're going to do this total thing. We're going to, be a successful influencer. And the voice is like really pressureful and mostly negative, but trying to reframe it as an opportunity. Like, I don't have anything holding me back from doing anything. Any course in my life right now that I want to take, for the most part, I can do it. So
exactly.
reframing it into a positive
Yeah, you're
thing, which it is.
still
Yeah.
young. You have so many options open to you. I'm sure there's plenty of people out there who feel the exact opposite, where they've chosen a very specific path and now they're stuck in it and they feel like they don't have any options available to them. You kind of almost have the opposite problem, is too many choices, and like, which direction do you go? So yeah, I think that's a great way to reframe that more positively for yourself and explore what options you have for you. I'm excited to see where things go.
Thanks, man. Yeah. And again, talking about time and how that can be kind of a negative voice, like worried about your own mortality. And these thoughts probably come into our minds so much more at the end of the year. I remember reading something about the like psychological power of that break, that January 1st. People really feel like they need to get things done by this point, or they need to start things after that point. But time is relative and it's all made up. And yeah, you're not behind, you're not ahead, you're right on track.
Totally. Yeah. Why don't you do the next one? Your best fitness win of the year.
Okay, yeah. So no injuries throughout the entire soccer season. That's a huge one for me. There's usually at least a sprained ankle that puts me out for a couple games, a pulled or torn hammy that puts me out for a while, or whatever. But yeah, I played really hard this season. I only missed one game for like other plans. Yeah, no injuries. Feeling really in good shape. And
That's
in
big,
addition to
man.
that,
That's hard to achieve.
totally, yeah, with going into tackles like I do. One of the guys told me the other day, actually, I kind of joked with them. I was like, yeah, hey, your dad just added me on Facebook. I love it, man. And he was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Yeah, you're like everyone's favorite player. When you go into a tackle, the whole sidelines are like, ooh, like anticipating what's going to happen. So there's some perspective for how it's even more important that I haven't hurt myself yet.
Totally. For anybody that hasn't watched you play soccer before, the way you go into a tackle is like entirely fearless, nothing held back, and 10%. It is something fun to witness for sure. Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad you must be doing something right, man. Whether it's like, whether it's, we're working on some flexibility or
Yeah.
strength or whatever, maybe it's to do with like quitting drinking. I'm sure there's something in that.
Yeah. I think daily creatine
Mm-hmm.
would be a factor for sure. And yeah, the quitting drinking, the next point that I had next to my fitness, was definitely by far the most shredded I've ever been in my life. And if anything, my regime has been less rigorous. So yeah, speaking to the powers of not drinking. Yeah. And you think if we went into the psychology of why does a guy go so recklessly into a tackle, it would probably be more negatively than positively. It's like no regard for his own
No, but
life.
it is like what you're supposed to do. It can just be a challenge for some people to do mentally. Like, I'm sure, I mean, every coach I've ever said is don't hesitate or pull out of a tackle. That's when you get injured. So you're supposed to
Yeah. Yeah.
go in full force. So I think you're doing the right thing. You're not doing it with any ill intent. You're just trying to win the ball and giving it your all, which is exactly why we play sports.
It's true. But I'm conflicted. I said this was going to be my last season. I said that last year too. So I don't know.
Man,
50-50, fun and a tour.
yeah, for sure. I think as long as you're, from my perspective, being that little bit older, dude, I'm like suffering with, I always get injured every season, dealing with some health stuff now, obviously. I for sure would recommend just continue playing while it's not beating you up. As soon as it starts to serve you negatively, then you could like do that again. But just once you stop, it's so hard to go back. That's the problem.
Yeah, I want to fast forward just a couple years when I can play for over 35s. I think will be a better tempo, less
Yeah,
dangerous.
over 35s is fun. I've for sure been enjoying it. Um, my biggest fitness win of the year, which there hasn't been many, because of like the health stuff I've been dealing with, but I will take one which I think is pretty big. I've been a sufferer of some pretty consistent back pain for years and years and years. There's this one like specific spot like to do with my ribs and my back that I just have constantly dealt with pain. I think it's due to an old soccer injury, hilariously enough, like a soft tissue injury sort of thing that just as the years roll on can linger. And was one of those people who, you get Instagram ads for different like back pain solutions and workout things and whatever. And at one point I had this like epiphany of like, I have extended medical benefits. I should just go see a physio who will give me a very specific, tailored to me solution to try and solve this problem. But I had never quite thought of it that way for some reason. I just thought, oh, this is a pain that I have to live with, without really thinking that, no, there's probably things I could do to mitigate that pain. And so I started seeing a physio, gave me some really great like exercises and stretches to do. And it has made a significant difference in that kind of chronic pain that I was dealing with. Big win there. I feel like that's a major positive and has kind of shifted my perspective on how to use a physio for just, I think it's a shift in perspective from like before, whenever I'd go to a physio or whatever, it's like, oh, I'm dealing with this injury because I broke my ankle or I tore my calf or tore my Achilles tendon or whatever. And I'm going to a physio to resolve this like immediate acute sports injury, whereas it's shifting to creeping closer to middle age and understanding that, now I'm dealing with pains because you sit at a desk all day hunched over a computer at work, those things are shifting, and it's reframing that perspective to understand the benefits I can get from that physiotherapist. So I'm very, very happy and appreciative for that. Shout out Quentin, my dude, he hooked me up. So yeah.
Dude, we're leveling up, body and mind. Love to hear it, dude.
Totally.
That's awesome. Okay, so I saw on social media you just posted a summation that you've read something like 40 books in the year. I think that's awesome. That's so many books compared to the maybe the 3 or the 4 that I've done. Pardon me, the 3 or the 4 that I've listened to. So since you're the reading pro, start us off with the best book that you've read in 2024.
Yeah, I was added this one. You mentioned this on the phone, I think, or over text message when we were talking about doing these best of things, and then I didn't see it in your list you sent over, so I had to add it back in because I was very excited for this one. I think I want to actually like post on our TikTok or something a bit more of a breakdown of the books that I've read for this year. This one was really cool. It's part of a series. This is book 2 of the series. I'm currently reading book 3. Maybe my perspective will change as I continue on through the series. It's one that's very well known. It's the Stormlight Archive series by Brandon Sanderson. So a fantasy series. I, as I say, chose the second one, Words of Radiance, which was the first one, obviously, with this big new fantasy world. There's a lot of world building and new names, and the first half of The Way of Kings, the first book is called, I found just a bit of a, not necessarily a slog, but it was just challenging to keep up with the names of places and people and the magical systems and everything going on, whereas it really hit its stride by the second book, Words of Radiance, and it was just nonstop action and like incredible, really imaginative things happening in this very cool universe called the Cosmere. I did specifically choose it as well because there was a really great mental health proportion to it that I wasn't necessarily like super clear to me, but I was actually having a chat with a friend and colleague, Riley, who's a big fan of Brandon Sanderson and these books, and he was talking about how he was going through a tough time mentally while he was reading them. I know he suffered with some pretty serious concussions that were a real challenge for him, and he wasn't able to read for a while because of the concussions. And once he kind of reached a stage where he could read again, I think he read every single Brandon Sanderson's book in a year or something like that. And he talked about one of the main characters named Kaladin and how his kind of journey helped him with some of the mental health stuff that he was going through. And it kind of clicked for me as well, some of the cool positive aspects of Kaladin's journey through mental health, I guess you could call it, that really resonated with me as well, thanks to Riley kind of shining a light on that for me. So, would highly recommend the series. It was a very long-winded answer, but could not recommend it more. Everything's like rated like 4.67 on Goodreads or whatever. So they're all really good. So yeah, that's my Brandon Sanderson Words of Radiance.
Amazing. So this podcast is all about honesty and vulnerability. So I'll share with you the 4 to 5 books that I read in the entire year. Listen to. It'll go really quickly. So obviously notable mention to Dr. Bob Rotella's Putting Out of Your Mind, episode 1 of this podcast. That was a great book. Really liked it. That was one. The second one was a revisit to, honestly, like in middle school, I did my best to hack through Tolkien's Silmarillion, but I can't think of a more difficult book. Well, there are more difficult books like James Joyce, Ulysses or something, but listen to the audiobook on Spotify. I think maybe 2024 was the first year audiobooks were on Spotify. Anyways, Andy Serkis, the voice and motion stop actor for Gollum, narrates the book, and he has an amazing voice and he really gets into it. And I was able to comprehend the stories so much better listening to him do it on my dog walks, and also with Amazon's Ring of Power seasons 1 and 2. It obviously takes place in the First Age, so you get some more kind of visual imagery and some references to people in the Silmarillion, so that kind of connects and makes it more impactful. And I just love the world of Middle Earth so much, and the lore and literature there is just so cool. My favorite chapter is this the story of Beren and Luthien. I want to name my kids after those people.
Cool.
It's a cool story. And then, so I'm probably going to choose that as my favorite of 2024. It's amazing. If it weren't for this that I haven't quite finished, but Nexus by Noah Yuval Harari, brilliant anthropologist, and it's on information systems from the Stone Age to AI, and it's just mind-blowing, and talking about like reframing and shifting perspectives, the power of basically the editor and information systems. So think about why religion is so widespread today. Like basically some brilliant marketers who just compiled these stories to fit their own agenda and snowball effect until it's like that game of telephone. You tell it to the next person and then they add in their own details until you get what it is today. Into the birth of the printing press. So the printing press comes out and it puts this authority on printed media, because at the time that the printing press came out, the only books that you would see printed and big would be the Bible. So then the next book that comes out, for an example that Harari says is like the Stone Hammer of Witches or something it's called. That's the next big book that you start seeing around. And because you might only have seen one other book in your life, the Bible, and then you go and read the book about witches, you just think that it's fact. And that caused the persecution and the murder of like millions of mostly women all over the world. So power of information systems. And today, now our ultimate editor is AI. And when AI is given the task of just driving engagement, and you know what drives engagement? It's shock and outrage content. So even though AI doesn't know what's feeding us, it's tasked with increasing engagement. So shock and outrage, shock and outrage, shock and outrage. It's all we're being fed, and just really cool.
Wow.
I started talking to a friend about this at a Christmas dinner the other night, and yeah, definitely read it. And he didn't know that, well, first of all, Jesus wasn't real, but if he was, he would have been like a Middle Eastern, a brown person, a Palestinian.
Totally. Yeah.
And this was so shocking and mind-blowing to my friend. I was kind of surprised by that. It's something that I've known for a while.
Yeah.
That just speaks to it right there.
Totally, man. Yeah.
I don't know. Do you think we could do an episode on religion, the birth of religion, the power of it, and I don't know, how about the path forward? I want us to all believe in ourselves. Like, is that humanism? Like, support your fellow man.
I think the smartest way to do that, and like I'd happily like take one for the team, but the best way to do that would be to have like one, treat it like a debate, like one be the positive, one be the negative. To like, because I
can't think of positives.
I know that's what I could take the play the opposite of devil's advocate for this one. I do think in terms of the community that it can provide for people, the support in like times of grief and whatever, there clearly is like positives, but I grew up going to Catholic school, going to mass, whatever, and very quickly found in my own experiences that often the people who were the most vocal about their like piety were actually the meanest, most horrible people. So, we all have our own experiences with religion. It would be an interesting one to do for sure. It would just be such a vast topic, but trying to focus specifically on like the mental health, either positives or negatives, I think would be an interesting perspective that maybe we could do.
Yeah, that would be cool. Okay, so to close up this one, the final two books were Tiger's biography, and then also Ben Hogan's Five Principles of a Golf Swing.
Nice.
Anyways, where are we at here? You've done your book. I've done my book. Start us off with your best moment of awe in the whole 12 months of 2024.
Yeah, this again was a bit of a tough one, but I was like scrolling through old photos over the year, and I was reminded of this like incredible night that it seemed like the entire northern hemisphere got to experience together. But it was the amazing aurora borealis, northern lights that popped up in that one evening in May. I can't remember exactly which day. I think it was May 12th or something. That was really fun. I'd never experienced the northern lights to that extent before. One time when I was tree planting, I saw them as like a faint shimmer in the sky when I like didn't have my contacts or glasses on and was trying to watch with everyone else. But this night in May, as I'm sure everybody was flooded with pictures on social media or whatever, but getting outside into the yard and taking some fun photos to the point where Sarah and I even went and just got some chairs and went and sat in the backyard in the middle of the night as Lou ran around, and I think he caught like a little vole thing in our yard and like ate it in the middle of the night under the northern lights. It was pretty funny, but that was like a very cool, like, space universe level moment of awe. Like I think that's like a moment of awe in kind of its most typical definition. So that one really stood out to me. That was super cool.
Yeah, that was the only time I can remember seeing it around these parts, that's for sure. It was super cool. I think that I might have used this moment of awe in episode 1, but reflecting on the whole year, I spent some time thinking about this. This is mine for the year. So Niagara-on-the-Lake, a golf course, oldest golf course in North America, right on the edge of Lake Ontario. It dates back to 1812. There's literally a moat on the course that used to be filled with water. That would have been like part of the war during 1812, I think, is when, they weren't Canadians then, but the British crossed the border, stormed, and lit the White House on fire. That's a moment of Canadian pride for sure. Yeah. Again, setting there with 3 buddies. 2 of them had been up all night drinking tequila together, and they had like maybe 1 hour of sleep. So just the culminating moment of seeing these 2 guys looking like death right on the edge of the most beautiful golf course we've all ever played on, right before we're set to play. Like I guess it's only a 9-hole course, but yeah. Also, seeing the Great Lakes up close is something else. It has current like a lake and depth like a lake, but infinite horizon like you're looking into an ocean. You can't see the edge on any side. It's endless. It's massive. It's cool. Yeah, we had such a beautiful day, beautiful course, awesome, awe-inspiring.
Love it.
Yeah,
I knew yours would be on the golf course, so I didn't do a golf course related one.
Good. Yes. Best achievement.
Yeah. So mine,
like video game achievement, 10 headshots.
Finally beat Red Dead Redemption. No, for me, it's a pretty like obvious one and what I've talked about 100 times, but the like kind of physical and emotional hardships of this year, I feel like I was in a pretty dark place, but through a lot of effort and perseverance and reaching out to different support networks and kind of different little like weapons within my arsenal, I guess you could say, whether it's friends like you, or
you're a weapon,
or the support through our medical system, and the fact that I didn't really have to pay for any of it is great. But yeah, I'd say my best achievement has been kind of overcoming those challenges and that really dark place, and finding myself where I'm at today as a more like mindful person with some more tools to kind of work through that mental health stuff. So yeah, that would be my best achievement. How about yourself?
That's a huge achievement.
Massive.
I've said it once and I'll say it again. I'm proud of you. You're thriving.
Thanks, man.
In spite of it all. That's an amazing John. What do you think of my new t-shirt, by the way?
It's kind of cut off because of the notes. Let me move them for a second. Oh my gosh, that's great.
Yeah. It's hashtag AI art.
Yeah.
I love it. Gifts from my honey. Okay. Best achievement of the year, my golf game, man. I've made massive strides in the last 12 months. It's been my first year of playing gulf for real. And yeah, I'm proud of how much better I've gotten. And I've been getting that feedback from my buds and feels good. I'm excited to keep getting better. I think that's tied directly with what some would argue an even bigger achievement, and that is not drinking 9 months into that now. So
Totally.
yeah,
That's huge.
maybe they have a causal relationship.
I mean, definitely. I think there's something about like where you put your time and energy, right? Like think about how many times you might not have got up for that early tea time or chose to go to the range after work instead of cracking open a beer. There's something to be said for our limited time on this glorious little blue-green marble floating through space and how we use it. And I think beyond the negative mental and physical health implications of drinking a lot of booze, there's also the time component. So I think you've used your time wisely this year.
Thanks, man. Yeah, time commitment, absolutely. Like drinking becomes like one more item on your to-do list.
Totally.
You got to buy it, you got to go to drink it. It's like an activity. Replace that with anything else. And yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. So that was awesome. I think that was so good, but that was only segment 1 of 2. So maybe for our ins and outs of 2025, go a little bit more rapid fire, a little more succinctly,
Totally.
back and forth, in and out.
Yeah, I think it'll fly a little quicker. It's a little bit different formatted. So if you're not familiar with the segment, I know it's something I've heard on other podcasts. I've seen it posted online. It's kind of the ins and outs, but clearly, if we're talking about ins and outs for 2025, an in would be something that's like considered good. It's something we want to do or achieve or focus on through the year, whereas an out is typically something that may previously have been an in before, but you are moving it now to the out column of things that you don't want to spend your time or money or efforts on or whatever. So it's kind of self-explanatory, but I'll get us going here. With my first in is going to be, obviously, as you mentioned, I read a lot of books this year. I broke my goal. I set my goal was 25. I think I ended up reading 32 in the end. So I was very happy with that. I set my goal for this year to 30. So my in for this year is reading. Definitely, it's something that I prioritized this year and I feel better for it. And I'd also suggest, I added on here book clubs as well. And book talk is actually being a bit of a fun tool for finding things that may be interesting to read or seeing what other people are reading or excited about and getting some insight into books. So books are great. They expand your mind and your imagination. And yeah, if you want to get outside your comfort zone with what you're reading, try joining a book club, something different. I definitely did that this year and it turned out really great. So hit us with your first out for 2025.
Yeah, fuck making excuses. They are so out in 2025, but specifically excuses for skipping movement. So it's easy for me to like rationalize with myself or make little deals like, you know, I got soccer practice tonight, so I don't need to go to the gym or whatever. But I want to start looking at movement and exercise as a crucial pillar of physical and mental health. So you wouldn't necessarily make an excuse for skipping dinner or skipping eating that day. So I'm not going to be skipping movement either. So let's get that straight. This isn't me being militant and hard on myself. This doesn't need to be rigorous, but this needs to be movement and exercise and being honest with myself. And I don't think excuses are very honest.
Totally, man. I suffer with that a lot. So I think that key, like we talked about earlier, is setting yourself at least a small goal, right? As horrible as I'm feeling physically or mentally, there's very, very few days where I couldn't at least do a 10-minute walk on a walking pad or getting outside of the house or whatever.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, very, very key.
And in order to make room for that, talking about time being our most finite resource, managing your circle, who you spend your time with matters a lot. In 2025 for me is setting boundaries and protecting my energy. So that's really reflecting on everything that I choose to do, being mindful of it, deciding why, what's good, what's not. And yeah.
That's a really good one. I did that very strongly this year, set some boundaries for myself because I needed to protect that energy, and it worked wonders for me. So that's a great one. Heading into my first out, I'm going to go with consumerism. I mean, who can consume crazy in these times of rapid inflation. So I want to focus on recycling, upcycling, repairing things, avoiding fast fashion, all that kind of stuff. It's one thing that I focused on a little bit this year, where I think in the past I had a tendency to be like, this thing isn't quite working the way I want to, throw it away and get a new one. Whereas there's been a few instances where I've put in a small amount of effort and chose to repair something instead of just going and buying something new. And that's not only felt really positive and good, but has also been positive for the old cash flow. So for 2025 is consumerism.
That's great. I definitely, when I'm looking to buy a new item, I'm now thinking about what's the quality item that can last me, the rest of my life or a considerable amount of time, not thinking of cutting costs on getting the cheaper item and then having to throw it out next year or replace it the year after. So yeah. And then when you invest in that quality product, then you care enough to replace it, like patch up that jacket, stitch up those jeans. Don't just go and get another pair of, garbage ones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great one. Really, really, really good. Okay, so another in for my 2025 is prioritizing quality sleep. Okay? I need to do something about my sleep. So you could say that in 2025, in order to get there, cannabis could be out, but I'm not going to go that far. Prioritizing quality sleep means looking at a lot of different options, and if it comes down to it, then yeah, maybe we'll get to that point. But in 2025 is prioritizing sleep.
Nice, man. That's a really big one. I think I suggested it to you at one point already on the pod, but there's like a 15-minute yoga nidra thing, which I don't even know. Like, ignore the word yoga because it's not really yoga. You don't move. You're just lying there and thinking through, like, and breathing into different parts of your body, which I guess is the yoga aspect. But I find like an unbelievable sense of calm and relaxation after completing that 15-minute thing. You're so ready to just fall asleep. Even most of the time I do it just to relax myself before I then like open my book and read before I fall asleep. But I think if you were to do it and then just like immediately doze off, you would probably have like the best sleep of your life. So, as I say, I think I mentioned it before, but definitely give that a go.
Here's something else I've been thinking about in terms of my sleep. I want your perspective on
Mm-hmm.
this. So maybe it's in an effort to avoid everything other than stopping smoking cannabis. But I hear that sleeping with your dog is really like more disruptive than we think it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like all their micro movements throughout the night and things like that. Even like great pet experts say that both you and your dog will sleep better with that separation. So I don't know. We've had 2.5 years of glorious snuggles. It might be hard to put that boundary up, talking about boundaries, but
Yeah.
maybe we'll see.
The thing for me is like I grew up with a like 100-pound plus golden retriever that slept on my little single bed with me as a kid when I weighed less than that. And so I'm so used to having that like body beside me that whenever if I go on a trip or something and Lou doesn't come along, it feels so wrong to not have a dog beside me. So I fully understand and recognize that I definitely have heard that before, but not only could I don't want to do that to myself, but I could not imagine doing that to Lou. He's such a snuggly dog. But yeah.
Yeah. So you're saying crazy talk?
No,
Yeah, you're
I
probably
don't think
right.
it's crazy talk. I think you just certain things work for different people, and maybe that will help you. You could definitely give it a try if you want to, but that would be the last thing on my list of things to try and improve my sleep.
I'm going to start with the light management
Mm-hmm.
first, like introducing the right kind of light that sets your cycle going. I can't remember what that's
Mm-hmm.
called, early in the
Yeah.
morning, and then limiting that light later in the day. I think I'm pretty good at limiting the light later in the day because I do set my bedtime pretty early. But in the morning on these gray Victoria days, I bet I don't get the right kind of light in the right kind of quantities at all, then into the late afternoon, right? And it just fucks that cycle, just shifts it too late in the day.
What is it about your sleep that you find difficult? Like, are you waking up throughout the night, or are you waking up too early, or?
Yeah. So I'll wake up and I'll have incredible mental energy.
At like what
Like,
time?
okay, I'll go to bed at, and then I'll wake up at 1 and 3 and
Mm.
5 and yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I don't really have much of a problem going to sleep because I'll smoke a doobie. And again, I have to acknowledge that cannabis use has a massive impact on the sleep.
Yeah.
So the
Yep.
fact that I haven't tried putting that out yet is kind of like, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
quit your complaining. But
Yeah.
yeah, because I think my body might be waking up wanting more THC even. I don't know.
Dude, honestly, possibly. I got some good advice from my doctor on my most recent visit because I think I do sleep well, but occasionally, I would say like once or twice a month, I have that sort of experience where I'm waking up at like 3 a.m. or something and my mind just starts racing. Like my body's ready to go, or my mind is anyway. And at that point, you kind of like, I'll toss and turn for a while and try and get back to sleep. And basically what my doctor suggested is that if you're not falling asleep again within like 20 minutes of waking up in the middle of the night, to actually get up, start your day, do some stuff. And then if you find yourself getting tired and ready to sleep again, say like before, 8, 9 a.m. or whatever, go back to sleep, but only for 45 minutes. And that resets your circadian rhythm and you'll be ready to go to sleep again that next night at the right time and continue on through that cycle. The other thing he suggested was during these kind of dark and dreary times of the year to use that like sad lamp thing that I have in the morning when you wake up, to set that light to kind of start your day. And that helps, like similar sort of thing, like set that circadian rhythm for that time. So then when you are going to bed again that night, your body knows that, okay, it's time for sleep, and then I'm going to sleep through the night again. So those are some small things, like slightly, maybe kind of related to what you're struggling with your sleep. But yeah, man, when I have those nights, they suck. That's tough to deal with for sure.
I've never gotten a sleep score on the iPhone app above 40. And yeah, we have a lot of LED grow lights because I'm in a basement here for all the
Yeah.
plants. So I should look up to see if that spectrum of light to grow plants is the same that I need in the morning.
Yeah, probably.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, could be easily. I've been using my sad lamp on my little lemon tree that I've got to try and keep it alive through the winter because I'm so worried about it.
Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
seems to be helping the tree, so maybe there's some.
What else are you kicking out this year?
I'm gonna kick out rushing unnecessarily. I always find myself in a rush. It's related to my like bad time management, which I've mentioned before. But since making that a goal of my week, I've been able to have some leaps and bounds in improving my time management. So I'm going to continue focusing on that, prioritizing like just grinding things out a lot less. I know sometimes with trying to like maximize my sleep and my energy levels before I head to work, I'll like stay in bed as long as absolutely possible and then get up and have to rush to work. And I know that's like probably the worst possible thing I could do because it just sets me on edge and immediately like skyrockets my heart rate. I'm rushing around, I'm stressing, and that's just a terrible way to start the day. So as I say, as I head back to full-time work here, I'm going to try and avoid that as best as possible. And yeah, just to avoid rushing around. And as I said, like I'd focus on trying to get to appointments, 15, 20 minutes early in case you hit some traffic or whatever. And then I'm not having that like white knuckle driving to get somewhere sweet or swerving in and out of traffic, which all of that's just bad for your nervous system. I'm prioritize, yeah, I'm prioritizing that just like calmness within my nervous system this year. So I think one of those things is rushing, and that's going to be better to help with my with time management. Yeah, it's a big one. The next, my
That.
last one, my last in for the year is I wrote down here gardening, but I'm gonna expand it a little bit to more just like old people hobbies. Man, it goes along to that same thing I was kind of just talking about, is that promoting that like softness to your nervous system, low intensity exercise that keeps you healthy. I know we talked about, what do they call them, like the blue zones or something, where like people live beyond 100. A lot of that information is showing it's that like things like gardening and time in nature that are positive for your nervous system and give you like nice low intensity exercise are so good for promoting your well-being and longevity. So I've been doing it a little bit this year. We had an amazing garden going this spring and summer and into the fall. I've been enjoying setting up little like bird feeders and feeding the birds, and like there's this one little thing that I take care of within our lovely little garden here, and I snap photos of them when I can, and that's become like a fun little hobby. I like now recognizing their sounds and being able to identify them and tell what different birds they are and whatever. So in is old people hobbies for that myriad of different reasons.
That's perfect. I'm kicking out. This is going to be tough, but I'm kicking out ordering food.
I'm going to do this too.
And honestly, only because of the massive financial suck that it is. And I think that technology is amazing and it's made our lives easier in a lot of ways, but not always for the better. The fact that I can reach to this computer that's already glued in my hand 24/7 and just spend money to get food here. I mean, yeah, it's lazy and I have the time for it. I'm a really good cook. I love cooking. We got lots of groceries in the fridge. Just because I don't want to spend the 30 minutes to cook dinner is not a good excuse. So again, I talked about cutting out excuses, no excuses for not working out, no excuses for ordering food.
That's a really good one,
Yeah.
man.
I gotta cut out that avocado toast if I want to buy a house one day. God,
The
no.
delivered to me avocado toast. Yeah.
I already bought a house once and it was the most financially devastating thing in my fucking life. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. uh, maybe the key is just not to buy
Yeah.
one in Saskatchewan.
Oh my God, fuck that place. Do you think if we were to try and get our listeners to engage more, it would actually work? Like if I were to say something like this 2024 recap ins and outs episode isn't just about us. We want to build a community and we want to hear from our community. So how do we get our few followers to share some of their best of moments on our social media or in the comments of wherever they're viewing this podcast? And yeah, and we'll get back to you and we'll start chatting and we'll become little virtual friends.
Totally. Either your best ofs or your ins and outs. So if there's something you're
Yeah.
wanting to try and do this year or something you want to kick out of your routine, yeah, comment, let us know. I mean, I definitely have been reminded of a few things, even just listening to your ins and outs and things that I want to do. So anybody with their own perspective and information, that could only be beneficial to all of us if we share it. So yeah,
Yeah.
comment below.
Uh, Comment below. Our mutual friend Armand always gives me really great advice. And one of the best things that he said to me a couple years ago was he asked me if I write down my goals. And I didn't necessarily understand the question at the time. Like, do I make goals? Like, yeah, sure. But he talked about the importance of actually putting pen to paper and how that's the first step in basically manifesting these things to happen. And Armand's been super successful and hearing him reflect on the previous years of the goals that he's written down and how many of those he's crossed off and come true has been great. So the first time I did that was last year, and I reflect on it before this episode, and I've switched direction in quite a few ways. So
Yes.
my career and my financial goals are going to be a lot different this year. So those weren't really on track, but I had wrote down about stopping drinking alcohol. So I'm proud that's one off the list. And honestly, like if you write down 20 things and only do one, that could be better than if you hadn't have written anything down. So
Totally.
it could be a fun little process for you. I encourage you just open your notes app, get a notebook, just write down some goals. There's also Armand showed me a way that he spreads out his different categories of goals, and you should do this for your own. But there'd be a life goal, a career goal, a community goal, like a spirituality goal, or whatever, things like that, different categories. And yeah, and then check in next year and see how you progress.
Totally, man. That's exactly what Sarah and I did last night, like very similar categories. Like career goals, personal goals, relationship goals, financial goals, fun and leisure goals is a big one. I know like with all the stuff that kind of happened to us this last year, that was one thing that for a lot of the year got pushed to the wayside as being like a very, very small priority. And that starts to eat away at you eventually if you realize like, oh, I've just been grinding it out. I haven't been having any fun. So you can set the smallest goal possible for yourself that you can achieve. And if it makes you feel good and is positive, then go for it. So yeah, that's really great advice.
Absolutely. Amazing. So I realize that next week is not the Mexico episode. We'll have one more episode next week and then the Mexico episode. And then, only a few more and we'll be at the end of season 1. So this has been great. Our engagement's growing by the week and I think that we're getting a little better at it. I know that our behind the scenes prep is looking a lot more official and yeah, now we just need, open to hearing some feedback from you guys about how we could mold this in a way that would benefit you all even more.
For sure. And as I mentioned in the last podcast, it's all that like engagement is so important to us in the community that we're trying to grow here. Liking the podcast, commenting, giving it a rating, subscribing, whatever, all those sort of things on whatever platform you're consuming is very much appreciated. Yeah. Hope everyone has a fantastic year this year.
Yes, and Happy New Year to my friend. I love you.
Love you too, buddy. Thanks for getting this started with me this year. It's been super fun and a major positive. So I'm looking forward to getting back into our routine so we can talk some more after a quiet couple of weeks here as we got through the holidays.
I'm so stoked to see where we go, man.
Mm-hmm. And lots of rounds of golf for sure.
Lots of rounds of golf.
Later.
Peace
man.
out.